Okay, good evening and welcome to Shulchan Aruch Yom. We're starting a new sefer today, Chelik Beis of Mishnah Berurah or Chaim. We're greeted with a nice big simon today. Hilchos Nesilas Kapayim, simon Kuf Chav Ches 128, 45 halachas today. Try to do it in 45 minutes. That's the goal. I don't know if we'll get there. Aleph, Ein Nesilas Kapayim Pachas Me'asara. As the Gemara says in Megillah, it's one of the Dvarim Shebekdusha. Nesilas Kapayim, you have to have 10 people there, 10 men. That Kohanim and Aminyan Kohanim are included among the 10 people. Of Ein Lazar Lisakapob, Afilim Kohanim Acherim. A Yisrael, even if there's other Kohanim doing Nesilas Kapayim, we should not do Nesilas Kapayim. The Zar over Be'esei, the Ramah says the Zar, quoting a Tosos and Ksuvos, the Zar violates a mitzvah's essay by doing it. It says, Kosevarchu es Bnei Yisrael, you, the Kohanim, should bless Klal Yisrael, meaning if you're not a Kohen, you shouldn't be blessing Klal Yisrael. Lavbam, Kal Essay is essay. The Tosos Parakol Kisve Loyada Ri Ma Isri Ish Bazar Hol. He says, and Tosos in Misachas Shabbos seems to say there's no problem. If Shardim Kohanim Acherim Shari V'Sarachi, and maybe the way of resolving it, the Ramah says, if it's by himself, then it's a violation. But if he's with other Kohanim, then there'll be no violation. Beis Kol Kohen She'ein Bo Echad Me'advarim Ma'akvim. We'll see things that maybe prevent or preclude a Kohen from doing Nesilas Kapayim. If he doesn't have anything wrong with him. Even though seemingly the mitzvah is kosevarchu, he's only mavata one mitzvah. Hareza ke over, the Rambam says he's like over b'shalosh essay. The Mishnah Berurah explains because it says kosevarchu, it says amor lahem. It also says v'samu eshrami. You should place by name. All these things are things advising or commanding the Kohanim to give a bracha from Klal Yisrael, as long as we'll see that Klal Yisrael asks for the bracha. Part of the Berachos Kohanim is that they ask for the bracha. If there's no, that's why you announce Kohanim, right? You have to ask for the bracha, otherwise they shouldn't be giving it. Imhaya, the Shulchan Aruch in the Beis HaKnesses is Shekari Kohanim, right? He's only over the mitzvah's essay if he's in the shul when they say Kohanim. There's either three ways of being mechayev a Kohen to go be all of the ducha, and one is by saying Kohanim, being present in the shul when they're saying Kohanim. Or if you specifically say, Yisrael ask him to give a bracha and Nesilas Kapayim. Or once they wash their hands, a Levi is supposed to wash the hands of the Kohanim before the brachas. So once he washes his hands, now you're mechuyev to give. If you don't want to be part of it, you should go out of the shul for Nesilas Kapayim. We'll see. Although maybe it's advisable not to go out of the shul because people think there's a gam with you, there's a reason of psul in your family, not really a Kohen. Maybe you're born illegitimately, and that's why. So we're going to see how you resolve these problems. Gimel im ala pam achas b'yom zeh shuv eino over afilu amru lo ale. Sorry for the background noise, but it's kind of late here and it's hard to find a different place to do it, so I have to ignore the background noise. But if you pay attention, I speak loud and clear, so you won't miss what I'm saying. If a Kohen does duchening one time in the day, even if later in that shul or in a different shul, or if you're duchening two times, like on a fast day at mincha, nonetheless, you only have the chiyuv on the Kohen. You only do it once a day. If he chooses to do it a second time, he's allowed to do it a second time. But he's not mechuyev to it. It's a mitzvah, although he's not mechuyev. Daled k'shakanim einam rotzim la'alos l'duchan einam strichim lishos chutz mibeis haknesses. When the Kohanim, they don't want to go up, they don't have to wait outside. El b'shasha koreh achazan Kohanim. The only problem is to be present in the shul when he says Kohanim. So just go to the hallway when he says Kohanim. Aval kadei shelo yomru shehem pegumim nagu shelo dikanas mibeis haknesses ad sheyigru birkas Kohanim. So technically, all you have to do is step out. When he says the Kohanim, but if you only step out the Kohanim and then come back in the middle of Berkas Kohanim, it looks bad because they'll see all the Kohanim up there in the Duchan. And you, who are known to be a Kohen in the community, are not up there, so it looks bad for you. So the minhag is to stay outside till the end of Berkas Kohanim. Hey, lo yalu Kohanim l'Duchan l'mnalim. You shouldn't go up with shoes. The reason is because your shoe strap might snap or your laces might get untied, and you might bend down to fix your shoes, and you're bending down to fix your shoes. So people say that you're really trying to avoid doing Berkas Kohanim. You're busy tying your shoes, but let's say you're avoiding Berkas Kohanim because maybe there's a pagam with you. Maybe you're ben grusha, ben chalutza. Your parents, it was a Kohen who married a grusha or a chalutza, which is an isser, and then you're a chalal. Therefore, you can't do Nesilas Kapayim. To avoid that, they were goes around any shoes. You shouldn't wear any shoes. That's why the Kohanim take off their shoes before Berkas Kohanim. Aval bebate shakayim shari Patei are boots, to wear a pair of boots. I just ordered a pair of boots, Blundstone boots from Australia. Not actually from Australia. That's the company is based in Australia. Patei Shukayim wearing boots, so that's not really, you don't really have laces on boots. They just really slip onto your foot. So therefore, that wasn't included Gzeira. Yesh Machmir Nimhem Shalor. Some people are Machmir on boots, the leather. V'nagu lahakal b'ksas mekomos. The Ramaz is actually in certain places you can be makel if you're wearing boots, even if they're made out of leather. I think the minhag is to take off your shoes no matter what you're wearing. Even though Kohanim, when they get up in the morning, everyone does Netilas Yadayim in the morning. You go to the bathroom, you do Netilas Yadayim, right? To clean your hands in the morning. Chozrim v'notim yadayim. Say a bracha on Netilas Yadayim. Chozrim v'notim yadayim ad haperek. Right before you do Birkas Kohanim, the Levi pours water in your hand, right, and covering your whole hand until your wrist over here. The Levi is supposed to pour it on his hands. Now, where the Levi is supposed to pour it, where we know that, the Beis Yosef puts a Zohar. That's where we know. I didn't know. I thought the Gemara says that a Levi pours on the Kohen. The Mishnah adds that if there's no Levi, then a Bechor like me, I'm actually a Petaracham, a Bechor who's supposed to take over for the Kohanim Zman Mashiach, so they have the responsibility to pour on the Kohanim hands. The Kodem Lachein Yitol HaLevi Yoda. Before the Levi pours water on the Kohen, he should make his hands make sure his hands are clean. Lonago Levim, the Ramos says Little Yidem Tchila Raksam Kol and Shachris. If they're in the middle of davening, so they can rely on the Netilas Yadayim they did before Shachris. Their hands are clean. They didn't touch any place that's dirty. So therefore, they don't really. The minhag is you don't have to wash your hands. The Levi Zayin Im Not Al Kohen Yada Shachris Berach Al Netilas Yadayim. If he actually did what he's supposed to do and make bracha Netilas Yadayim in the morning, when the Levi pours water in his hand, he doesn't make Netilas Yadayim. Again, he just has a water poured in his hand because it's not really a chiyuv necessarily. Really, if he hadn't done it in the morning, you would make a bracha Netilas Yadayim because you have to make a bracha Netilas Yadayim after you go to the bathroom in the morning. But here, there's no chiyuv, the water to be poured. The minhag is to pour the water on the hands of the Kohanim. But seems right as a Gemara or to the Rashi that you have to pour your hands on the you have to pour water on your hands. It's obviously not a chiyuv because you don't make a bracha, but maybe there is a source to it in the Gemara. Chet. Shemasa shtil sibur ritzei. When the Shtil Sibur starts saying Ritzei, the Shas, Kol Kohen Shebeskez Nekar Mimkom Alalas Adochen. At that point, L'Chatchila, once he starts saying the bracha of Ritzei, that is when the Kohanim should leave the place where they're standing in the shul and start to walk up to the Duchen. Even if it's a far walk, you won't get there until he finishes Ritzei. Shabbat it's okay. Avalim Lo'aka Raglav Ritzei Shuv Lo Yala. Now, L'Chatchila, you're supposed to start right when he starts Ritzei. If you're not in the shul right then, you're coming back from washing your hands. As long as you moved from the place that you were davening in up towards the bima, up towards the duchen, the beginning, top, the front of the shul, at any point during Ritzei, then you can continue going. If you have not, by the end of the bracha of Ritzei, you get to the modim and you haven't moved from your place yet, then you should leave the shul during Birkas Kohanim because this is a halacha from the Gemara. The Gemara says supposed part of the Nesilas Kapayim is going up to the duchen. And how we know it's connected because the Mishnah Berurah explains that by Aaron, we know that Aaron, he when they first inaugurated the Mishkan, he gave a bracha to Klal Yisrael, and then he did a korban kata. So there's a kesher, there's a connection between doing the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash and Nesilas Kapayim. I'm going to talk more about this in Ian to lean on the two aspects of a Kohen. One is giving brachas, the importance of being a Kohen versus the fact that a Kohen is there to serve Klal Yisrael in the Beis Hamikdash. We'll talk about those two things. Okrim, Rashi would tell us around Kasud Lo Yomer also ad Amdo Lifnei Ateva. Kohanim Ragleim also Duchan Omrim. The Gemara says when they're on their way up to the Duchan, up to the front of the shul to get in their place, ready to do Birkas Kohanim. Omrim Mihira Salfanecha Hashem Elokeinu Shtei Bracha Zu Shetzivisanu L'Varech Es Amcha Yisrael Bracha Shlema V'Liyah Ba'Michshal V'Avan Me'atav Elam. It's a short tefillah that's supposed to say that their tefillah bracha they give the Klal Yisrael should go well. Technically, the best thing to do is that they should elongate saying this tefillah until the conclusion of Birkas Hodah, at which point is the time for Birkas Kohanim. When they first get up to the Duchen, they put on their talis and they face towards the beam, towards the Aron HaKodesh. Acharim klape am, their backs are faced to the people. That's Bosem kufim l'toch chapeim asher chibur Mosai modim. Their hands are held together until the Shliach Tzibur finishes the bracha of Hodah. Va'az imhem shnayim korei lahem Shliach Tzibur kohanim. Now this is known halach. Here in Eretz Yisrael, they do brachas kohanim every day, so people know about this. If there's two kohanim present, then someone calls out, usually not the chaz, and you call out kohanim, because you have to ask for the bracha in order for him to give the bracha. Hagav l'yomar Elokeinu v'seinu. Right? If there's kohanim, you don't say Elokeinu v'seinu, which is used in place of berachas kohanim when there's no kohanim, or you don't do berachas kohanim like America, Chutzar, also Valachash, Admilas Kohanim. Some say this is not what we do. That Shliach Tzibur does say Elokeinu Elokeinu until it gets to the word Kohanim in there. As Omrim Kol Ram, and then they say Kol Ram. The Shliach Tzibur V'Chozer Omrim Am Kedoshach Kamor. The Chazan says Am Kedoshach Kamor Valachash. V'Chein Nogim Dinos Elu. Apparently in Poland and where the Ramah lived, they did that. And then they turn around to face the people. If it's only one person, so then you don't say Kohanim because you don't say Kohen, one Kohen, and Kohanim is plural, so therefore you don't call out to them. We assume technically the fact that you washed his hands and you told him to go up to the bima, that's enough of asking them to do Berkas Kohanim, so therefore you don't have to actually say Kohanim. When they turn to face the nation, if you're familiar with Kohanim, that's a text of the bracha stated in the Gemara. Why it says Ba'ava, I don't know. Go look at some rabbis, I'll tell you why. When they're doing Birkas Kohanim, you're not supposed to see this, we're going to learn later on, but they pick up their hands right to the height of their shoulders. Apparently the right hand is a little taller than the left hand. Yeah, small. Anyone who's familiar with Star Trek, from what's that character's name? The Jewish guy, I don't know. Vulcan, what's his name? That he used to do. He was actually a Kohen, a Jewish guy. He was a Jewish guy, and he did Berkas Kohanim as one of the people from outer space. This is where he gets it from. He admitted that he learned it from the Jewish custom of being a Kohen. He was a Kohen. William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy. I think Nimoy was his name. Right? Everyone knows how a Kohen, you could watch Star Trek and see how he held his hands. They put space between their fingers. You want to have 5 spaces, right? Right? They hold their pinky and these fingers together. They make like this in between. So there's one here in between them. Then there's one here between the two thumbs, and one here, and then one here. So that's 5 air spaces between them. Between the index finger and the thumb, between the two thumbs, and they stretch out their hands. As opposed to when you're davening, some people go like this. They're supposed to go like this. The back of their hand is upward, and the bottom of the hand is downward. The Kohanim start to say Yivarechecha. Now, the Shulchan Aruch says even without prompting, even normally our minhag is the Chazar the Shliach Tzibur starts saying Yivarechecha, but according to the Shulchan Aruch, the first word he starts Yivarechecha. They're not going to make a mistake about that. The Shliach Tzibur introduces him to the first word also. Tchila, that's what we do in Mikoma in Poland and Eastern Europe. And then the Shliach Tzibur, as we know, says word for word before. And they repeat each word. When they finish each of the 3 brachas, Tzibur says Amen. The Tzibur always says Amen. This is from the Gemara. The Gemara says Tzilas Kamayim only can be done as opposed to davening and Kriya Shema, which could be translated. This can't be translated. It has to be Lashon HaKodesh V'Amida. They have to be standing. And Tzilas Kapayim or Kol Ram, they have to extend their hands up. For example, the Shura says if you're a person that can't hold your hands up, or of a kol ram, you're a person who has a hoarse voice. You shouldn't be doing it in the siyas kapayim. You have to, all these things are ma'akiv. Ted vav akach maskil shliach tzibur sim shalom. Afterwards, the shliach tzibur begins sim shalom. As the kohanim machzirim pneim leheichal omrim Ribon ha'olamim. While he's saying sim shalom, they have another prayer to say Ribon ha'olamim. This is a Gemara in Sota. Asinu masha gazarta leinu asiyata ma shiftachtanu. Do for us what you promised. Hashkif amon kauchcha min hashamayim uvarech zamcha es Yisrael. This is actually a pasuk in Parshas Kisavo. Hagav yarichu b'tefillah zu. They should elongate this tefillah ashi yisayim shtei sibur shim shalom until they conclude as the shtei sibur finishes sim shalom. Shanu asibur amen al shneiim. And therefore, when the sibur answers amen to sim shalom shtei sibur, they're answering amen also to their Yehi Ratzon. They can't elongate the word so long. We'll see in two simanim other things they could say in order to extend their Yehi Ratzon. Dead Zion. The Kohanim can't turn their back, right, from the Sibur, right? They give the bracha facing the Sibur, and then they turn around. When do they turn around? When he starts saying Shem Shalom. They can't fold their fingers until they turn around. They have to stay in the front of the shul until he finishes Shem Shalom. They have to wait until not just Sim Shalom is finished, but answer also the Tzibur answers Amen to his bracha, and then they can turn around and leave from the Duchen. When they turn around, they should turn to the right. When they come to the Duchen, right, they face the Paroch as they face the Aron, and then they turn right from the south, facing the people, and then when they turn back after Birkas Kohanim, also they continue turning in the right way. They shouldn't touch their shoes. They should try to slip it on or something like that. If they're dirty, right? It seems only if they're dirty, because then it makes your hands dirty. The Mishnah Berurah says all shoes are considered dirty, like we learned in Siman Dalet at the beginning of Shulchan Aruch, that shoes make your hands dirty. You have to wash them. If you ended up touching your shoes, then you have to wash your hands for davening. The person who says Kohanim, right? There's always a special person in shul who says Kohanim, right? I always wanted to be that person. I was never that person that said Kohanim. It's a special privilege, special honor to have that honor to be able to do it. Anyway, the person who says that, he has to wait till people answer Amen after the Berach of Avodah of the Shliach Tzibur. And then the guy say Kohanim. You have to wait till everything is finished. And when he says Kohanim, then you can say the bracha. They can't start saying Barecha. Amen. People answer, the congregation answers Amen to their bracha of the Kohanim. And then they can start saying Barecha, or according to our minhag, the Shliach Tzibur starts saying Barecha to lead them into it. And when he's announcing the word before, you can't say the word, they can't repeat the word until he's finished. The Shliach Tzibur is finished saying the word before. The Tzibur also can't answer Amen until the bracha, right? There's three brachas. Right, is a bracha, and then there's a 5-word bracha and a 7-word bracha. They have to wait till he finishes. The Kohanim finish enunciating the last word of the bracha, and then they can say Amen. The Ribbon Olam, which is say after the Duchening, they have to wait till the last Amen. The main is completed after the last bracha of the Tzibur. Yutet. The Shliach Tzibur, he shouldn't say Amen after the bracha of the Kohanim, because he's supposed to be leading. He might get confused, the Mishnah Berurah says. So therefore it's better after the Birkas Kohanim.
We're talking about the usual case of Yid.
Meaning we're talking about, not talking about
this is only the first half
bracha. We're not talking about the bracha Asher Kishal Shal Aaron. Now he has to answer. We're talking about the 3 brachas the Kohanim give, because there it's not, Amen is not answering. There's a chiyuv to answer Amen to a bracha, or you're invoking Hashem's name. When you say Amarech Hashem Yishmerecha, that's not a real bracha. b'shem malchus. So therefore, he doesn't have to answer Amen. It's better not to answer Amen because he'll get confused because he's in charge of leading on the Kohanim and reading it before them, so they know what to say. Chaf, im shliach tzibur Kohen. If the shliach tzibur happens to be a Kohen, im yesh sham Kohanim acherim lo yisa as kap of. Right. The Kohen, if the Shliach Tzibur, we're going to see you're not supposed to make the Shliach Tzibur a Kohen. It's better a Shliach Tzibur shouldn't be a Kohen. If there's Birkas Kohanim, if he happens to be a Kohen, if there's other people do Birkas Kohanim, he should not leave his place and he should not be one of the people giving Birkas Kohanim. People shouldn't say to him, "Go up and give us a bracha," or "Come wash your hands." But if they asked him, now they're Machayev and do Birkas Kohanim. Sarach la'alos, so over Rishem. Like we said, he's over to Mr. Essay, if he doesn't go up, if they asked him. If he's the only Kohen, he also shouldn't do Nisis Kohen. The Gemara in Brachos says, unless he's sure, and nowadays you're sure you have a sitter, it used to be people didn't have Sidurim, so they'd go up to do Duchening and they wouldn't be able to come back to Sim Shalom. If he knows he can go back to this place and not make a mistake, so then he can do Nisiyas Kapayim. In the Tzibur, what should he do? Because that's the halacha, you have to move from your place in the bracha of Ritzev. And then continue, move a little bit forward. And then continue saying the bracha, because at the end of the day, he's still the Shliach Tzibur. And then he should actually go up and face the people, move from his place, even though it's Chazaras Hashas, you're not supposed to move from your place for Birkas Kohanim. It's Sorech, just like you have a Shaila and Halacha during Milah Shmona, so you're allowed to leave. They ask a Rav. Here also you're allowed to do it. Birkas Kohanim Yakar Lo Acher, and someone else, another person from the Shliach, from the Tzibur, he should lead him on, so he should repeat the words from someone else. Messiah Machazan Sim Shalom. And the Chazan who did Birkas Kohanim should go back and do Sim Shalom. If the person who's leading him on, who's saying Hashem Yishmerecha, leading him on into the Birkas Kohanim, if he was Yotze, or he had Kavan, he didn't interrupt in the middle of the Chazaras Hashas, and he's part of the Chazaras Hashas. So the Makra should go back and say Sim Shalom because he's being part of Chazaras Hashas. He didn't interrupt in the middle. Like if you want to be Yotze with the Chazaras Hashas, technically you could be Yotze with it if you made a mistake in your tefillah. So then it's better for him to say Sim Shalom because it's hard for a person who already is doing. He was doing Birkas Kohanim. It's like he left his Chazaras Hashas. So it's better if someone else takes over. But if no one else can take over, then he goes back and does Sim Shalom. This happens a lot. People they shouldn't have 2 or 3 tunes. I don't know. There's not that many tunes. I only heard 1 tune growing up. They only used to do on Yontiv, but only 1 tune, not 2 or 3 tunes. They can all get confused. The Kohanim. You're getting a bracha. You want to get the words right. And similarly, also you should. Even if you want to, right? Not only can you do 2 or 3 nigunim, 2 kohanim doing 1 nigun, 2 kohanim doing another nigun. No, even all the kohanim, even if they want to stop and do a nigun for 1 bracha, a nigun for the second, a nigun for the third bracha, no, the right thing to do, because again they're getting confused. They only do 1 nigun for all 3 brachas. Chav Beis mishtadlin shihah makra Yisrael. Really, we want the person Chazaras Hashah, the person who's reading Yivarech Hashem Yishmerecha, who's really the Shliach Tzibur. He should be a Yisrael. Chazan Kohen, because if he's a Kohen, technically he should be doing Birkas Kohanim. Yamod Yisrael Etzlo V'Yikra Kohanim. So if he happens to be a Kohen, to be a Shliach Tzibur, so he shouldn't be the one who say Kohanim because he'd be calling to himself. V'Yakar Osav Chazan Omid V'Shos. The Chazan is quiet, and the Makra who says Kohanim, he is actually the one who is saying Yivarech Hashem Yishmerecha. The person who is the Shliach Tzibur obviously would be quiet. Chav Gimel B'Shah Shakohanim Mevarchen Ha'am Lo Yabitu V'Lo Yasichu Daitam. When the Kohanim are giving the bracha, they shouldn't stare, and they shouldn't have a hesach hadas. They have to focus on the words they're saying. It's important what they're doing. They're giving a bracha to Klal Yisrael. Their eyes should be focused downward. Like the Gemara says, you're supposed to have your eyes down when you're davening. The people should pay attention to the bracha. Their faces should be opposite the Kohanim's faces. They shouldn't stare at them. You can look at them, just not stare. In the Makom HaMikdash, the Mishnah Berurah says it was usher even to look. Nowadays, it's mutter to look, just not to stare. The reason you're not supposed to look is not because I'm blind. That's what I heard growing up. Is because you're gonna lose concentration. You're supposed to have concentration in hearing their bracha. They're supposed to have concentration in giving the bracha. So therefore, both of you shouldn't have your eyes focused on something else while you lose concentration. Haga, the Gama Kohanim Listakla B'Yadayim. The Ramah says the Kohanim also shouldn't look at their hands. Therefore, the Kohanim take the talis and they put it over their face. Yadayim puts the talis, and their hands are outside the talis. Some say even their hands. And this is the meaning that we do, that the Kohanim put their hands, because I've looked at the Birkas Kohanim, I see it every day. I look sometimes, why not? And you're allowed to look, it's not a stare. So they actually put their hands inside the talis, so people shouldn't look at it. Chav Dalet, the Gemara says, if you're standing behind the Kohanim, right? A lot of people are very careful. If they're standing in the front row, they're davening in the front row. Sometimes the Kohanim will be in front of them to back up their Birkas Kohanim. Even if they're on the side, it's okay. Even if there's an iron curtain, it doesn't mafsik as long as they're not behind him. If it's not their fault, they have a minion in the middle of the field, some reason, and they're doing their malacha, and they should be able to stop for Birkas Kohanim. They're doing the malacha. They can't come him bracha. They're actually part of the bracha. It seems to be even in earshot and can't hear the Birkas Kohanim. They're considered part of the bracha. Basically, that's shul Kohanim. Say you have a shul that's full of Kohanim, they make a new breakaway shul, only Kohanim. Ein sham ela asara. There's only 10 people, and they're all Kohanim. You need 10 people, Birkas Kohanim. Kulam olim l'dukhan. They all go to the dukhan and bless nobody, which is interesting. So who are they giving the bracha to? They're giving the bracha to people who are not in the shul, who couldn't come because they're busy with their parnasa in the fields. You need people to answer their bracha. So women and children are there, they'll answer amen. If no women or children are there, I don't know what you do. I don't think you have to answer amen to Birkas Kohanim. It's a nice thing to do. If you have more than 10 Kohanim, then you have 10 people be the congregation, and however many more than you have than 10, 2 or 3 or 4 or 9, they could be the Kohanim, all of the Duchan. You should have 10 people ideally answering, that's the best. Chavav, when they're making the bracha, you shouldn't say a pasuk. You hear the music in the background. Today is election day here in Israel. You hear they're clamoring for Shas, the Sephardi ultra-Orthodox party. They also have Gimel, which is the Yadut HaTorah, which is the Ashkenazi, the Litvish party. You shouldn't be speaking. You shouldn't be saying any psukim. Even learning, you shouldn't be learning in the middle of Birkas Kohanim. A lot of times now, especially in America, I remember growing up, the Kohanim used to elongate, and at the end of the brachas, we'll talk more about this, they used to, so then you could psukim because they're not really saying any words. It's better not to say these psukim. These psukim are actually written in the siddur, certain psukim to say while they're saying the words of Birkas Kohanim. It's better not to say these psukim. Chav Zayin, I don't know why they're adding the siddur. The Ramah says not to say it. Chav Zayin, the Kohen and Rasha Lostiv Midaito Yoser al Shlosh psukim. The Birkas Kohanim. There's only 3 psukim Birkas Kohanim. They're written in the Torah. He has a 4th one. Yimhosa over Baal Tosef. He's over the Israel of Baal Tosef, adding on to the Torah. It says giving 3 brachos. The 4th bracha is Baal Tosef. Chav Ches. Kohen Shanasa Kappa Baka Halach Beis Hakneses. He didn't say the Kabayim. And then he goes to Beis Hakneses Acher. He goes to a different shul. Matzah Sibur Shal Yigil Birkas Kohanim. Yachalisa. It's Kappa Pamacheres. Again, the Chiv is on the Kohen only do it one time. Even if you ask him to do this Kabayim, he's not mechuyev to do it. But it's not Baal Tosef because he's allowed to do it as many times as he wants. It's a mitzvah, it's not a chiyuv. There's a difference between a mitzvah and a chiyuv. We'll talk about that at a different time. Kohen shelo hispal adayin. He didn't daven. Let's say he comes to shul. He comes to shul late in the upstairs kapayim. He can go to the upstairs kapayim even though he hasn't davened Shemona Esrei yet. Lamed mishi yishlo mum befano of a yada. Let's say he has a blemish on his face or his hands. Kigon. This is an example. It's not the only example. Shem bokanios. He has white spots on his face or on his hands. Akumos. He's a broken bone, or akushos, or he's, I don't know, his spine is leaning him to one side. Sometimes you see old people, they're bent over, they're bent in one way. The Ramasid Balkanios Pirish Min Nega Lavon, it's a white blemish. Rashi Pirish Lint Lush Palaz Akumos Kufos, they're bent over. Old people are bent over. Akushos, that's the Dayim, they're bent over to their side. Aran Perish Akumoshnis Akma Yado Achoranis. His hand is held backward, he's paralyzed. Akujos he can't, make a space between his fingers, which is part of Birkas Kohanim. Lo Yisas Kapov, right? In all these cases, he's not allowed to do Birkas Kohanim. One of the big halachas of Birkas Kohanim, people have to concentrate on it. People are looking at these blemishes, they're not going to have concentration. Similarly, if his feet are exposed and he has blemishes on his feet, right? These examples we gave before are just examples. If he has anything noticeable blemish which is conspicuous, it's going to distract concentration either from the people making the bracha, the kohanim, or the people listening. He shouldn't be doing Birkas Kohanim. In a place where his legs are exposed, he's not wearing boots. He's a person who's drooling. Oh, she'enav zolfos dimmer, he's crying. He's blind in one eye. He says kapov. Again, the reason being over here, because you're blind in one eye, people realize that, and they're going to stare at you. If he's someone people are familiar in a city with him, everyone knows he has his blemish. He's completely blind. People are used to the guy. It's nothing spectacular, nothing they're going to stare at. Anyone who's lived in a city for 30 days, he moved in, he's been there only 30 days, Mikri Dash Be'ir is considered to be familiar to the people in the city. V'davka Be'iro, only in his city. Avalim Holech Ba'akrai Li'aracheres V'shasham Shal Yom. He goes as a guest, a traveler to Dubai, I don't know, somewhere else for 30 days. Lo, he's not considered a normal person, he's a tourist. If he's not coming to live there, if he's a person he's coming to a place every day and he has a job there, right? He's a teacher or he's a secretary, half a year, if he's going to be there for a significant amount of time, a year or even a half a year. So once he's there for 30 days, he's considered dash biro. Even if he has a mum, he can do Nesilas K'mayim. Lamed Aleph. In minhag hamakom l'shalshal hakohanim talis al kapeyim al pneyim afilu yesh b'fanav v'yadav kama mumim min yisas kapav. The problem is only if you can see it. But if at a place like we said before, that kohanim to extend the talis over not only their head but over their hands, they won't see it. So it's okay. Only his hands were inside the talis. Obviously, if they're outside, then you can see it. Some people work with dyes, right? If their hands are blue or a different color, this is a poor types of color. This says kapav. He shouldn't, when his hands are colored or discolored, people are staring at him. If most of the people in that city, that's what they do, they work with dyes, he says kapav. People are familiar with that. It's not spectacular, then they won't stare at it. Similarly, if he's a person people are familiar with, even if most of the people don't work in that job, but if he does, and they're familiar with him working at that job, so it's okay. Gives up his Elisa as kappa. If you can't pronounce the Hebrew right, you call an aleph an ayin, ayin an aleph, ayin, supposed to say. So then people will be distracted by that, and it's not the proper. It's not the proper way of doing Birkas Kohanim. People have to be focused. He's 13 years old, but he doesn't have. You know for sure he doesn't have 2 pubic hairs. Eno knows he has kappa because this is a mitzvah d'oraisa. Mitzvah d'oraisa, you have to be a real gadol. No say. If there are the kohanim or gedolim, they're doing Nesilas K'mayim. No, he could do Nesilas K'mayim in order to learn. And to learn how to do it, he's obligated to mitzvah chinuch. Once he's 13 years old and has 2 pubic hairs, so he's a gadol. So then he can do it even by himself. We don't check nowadays. We rely on the chazaka that once you reach 13 years old, you had 2 pubic hairs. You don't have to check nowadays. He could even do it by himself. You can only do it bakrai once in a while. Even if you know you have 2 pubic hairs, until you reach 18 years old, and this means I think a beard, like this type of beard over here. Then on an everyday basis, he could even do it by himself. Once you reach to 18 years old, which Mura says, let's say you can't grow a beard, it's still considered 18 years old, you consider having a full beard. you're younger than 18, if you have a full beard, even if you're less than, you could do it b'kfiyas by yourself. Ayin le'el simin and gimel sif ches. We talk more about that. Lamed hey, kohen shahargis hanefesh. He's a murderer. He killed someone. Afilu b'shogi, even though he did it unintentionally. Lo yisas kapav afilu asa tshuva. He didn't do tshuva because the pasuk says, "U'farsalem kafechem alim einam yikem yidechem damim maleyu." The Gemara says in Brachos, right? When you do Nesias Kapayim, if your hands are full with blood, it's like the Mishnah Berurah explains, "Kategor nasa sanegor." In Kategor nasa sanegor, you're guilty, right? How could you bring a bracha and be a defense attorney for Hashem when you're an accuser of the Jewish people of being someone who killed somebody? Mishnah Berurah does say if you were forced to kill someone, they'll kill you unless you kill somebody else, even though halacha is supposed to give up your life. Nonetheless, that's called onus. Onus is not shogeg, and you're allowed to do Nesias Kapayim. Hagav yeshon they must tshuva no say kapav. Some say they did tshuva. You could do. He's going yesh lahaka al bali tshuva. The meaning is to be make al bali tshuva. Shelo linol delas b'fneihem hachi no, because otherwise people are not going to want to do tshuva because they're not going to do Nesias Kapayim. So we want to encourage them to do tshuva, so therefore they get to do Nesias Kapayim. If they did tshuva, lamed vav mal tino kumes. He did a bris milah, a moel, and he made a mistake in the bris milah and he died. No sayas kapav. He can still do Nesias Kapayim. He's not considered a murderer. It's not considered shogeg because he's only 8 days old. We don't know if he's going to live till 30 days old. Until the kid is 30 days old, there's no chazaka. There's no assumption that he's going to live. And who says it's his fault anyway? Let's say there's a rumor going around. We don't know for sure that he's a murderer. Until it's clarified that he's a murderer, he's allowed to do Nesias Kapayim. Lamed Zayin, Mumur lo yisas kappa. If you're someone who specifically exchanged Judaism for a different religion, even to become an Arab, which is not really avodah zarah, yisas kappa. The Mishnah says, "Yesh omrim she must have tshuva." Let's say he came back to the fold. No sayas kappa. If he could come back, v'chein ikar. Mishnah also says if you're nechal shasa for hestia, that's like avodah zarah. If you're willing to drive in Shabbos in public, so then you also can't do this Kapayim nenas. If you're forced to do it, and onus happened, and they forced you to convert to Christianity or a different religion, you can still do Nesias Kapayim. You drank a revius of wine at one time, one sitting. Well, you say as kappa, because you're considered to be a shasa, someone who's drunk, so you can't daven in such a situation. Also, you can't do Nesias Kapayim. Shasa mishtei pamim. If you in 2 sittings you drank together, they diluted a little with water, mutter. Even a little more than revius. Even though it's mixed with water, I feel the shasa become palm. You said in 2 sittings or 3 sittings. That we explained earlier. You have to either wait the time that it takes to walk a mile, or you have to go to sleep for a little bit, and those are ways that you can alleviate the inebriation and go ahead and do Nesias Kapayim. He didn't have anything which is stopping him from doing Nesias Kapayim. We talked about doing avodah zarah, but other mitzvos, even people are saying bad things about Nesias Kapayim. Other averas, even if we know for sure he did other averas, and certainly there's just rumors about it. He's not in Nesias Kapayim. We'll see. Even if he did znus himself, he was a gilui arayos, right? He committed adultery. He can still do Nesias Kapayim. We'll talk about that more in Ian Delina. Mem Kohen shenasa grusha yisas kappa. However, if he's married to a grusha, which is an isser for the Kohen, he can't be Nesias Kapayim. Ein nogim al kedusha. We don't give him the din of kedusha. I feel the dikros b'torah rishon. Besides the halacha of Nesias Kapayim, a Kohen you have to treat him differently. You have to give him the first aliyah in shul. When you're sitting down to a meal, you have to give him the first portion. You have to let him do the zimun if he's there. Filu girsha, even if he was married to a divorcee and then he divorced her, Omesa, she died. Pasal, he's still pasal. Either hanal das rabim anashim shuasram until he makes a public vow. A public vow is special. You make it in front of 10 people. It can't be annulled. It can't be annulled. So this way, he promised that we know he will never go back because it's a nether precluding him from marrying a woman who's asr to him, a grusha or a chalutza. So until he does that, that's considered tshuva, and then he can do Nesias Kapayim. Mem aleph, nitma lemeis she'enu mishiva meisei mitzvah. A Kohen's only allowed to become tamei to his zayin krovim. If he's tamei to a different mitzvah, he goes to the cemetery. Pasal min adochan v'kol ma'alas haknuna sheyashuv yikabel shel yitamei od lemeis. And that's the same thing as marrying a grusha. It's violating one of the mitzvahs of the kahuna. So he's also pasal from this claim. Yeshom demishi yeshbel bas. Rama says so he has a daughter, Sheimira o Shezinsa. she converted to a different religion, or she's zinsa, or she committed adultery, and mechuyav and od lekadsha. You don't have to be mekadesh. And mekadesh means to give him the first aliyah and shul, to give him zimun, to give him the first portion. Gavia he mechalel. The Torah says she disgraces her father, she's mechalel her father. However, the Mishnah Berurah notes that he still does the Nesilas Kapayim. The only thing that precludes him from doing Nesilas Kapayim is either being a murderer or converting to a different religion, or being machal shas for hestia, which is like avodah zarah. Mem beis, hachal ein nosias kabbal. Hachal is a product of a union that was forbidden to the Kohen. Kohen marries a grusha or a chalutza. They have a child. The child is a chalal. He is no longer a Kohen anymore. He loses complete kuna. So therefore, there's no mitzvahs in Nesilas Kapayim. Mem gimel achar shivas kamei avelus nosei kapav. During the 7 days of avelus, technically you're mechuyev in all the mitzvahs. You do Nesilas Kapayim. It was toch shiva yamelus. So therefore, after 7 days, for sure you do. With toch shivas kamei avelus yetze beis hakneses b'shas shekarim kohanim. Technically, he's mechuyev in the mitzvah. He should do Nesilas Kapayim. However, we're going to learn it's best to do Nesilas Kapayim when you're in a state of simcha. And avelus is not in a state of simcha. So therefore, you should leave during the time of Birkas Kohanim. Some say, the Ramah says, for your parents 12 months, for every other Avel 30 days, the best thing to do is to leave the shul during that time and not to be Nesilas Kapayim, because you're not in a state of simcha. If he's not married, even though it says in the Gemara that someone who's not married is shara below simcha, he doesn't have simcha in his life, it's not a state of sadness, it's just lack of happiness, and that's okay. You can do Nesilas Kapayim. Haga, they don't know Nesilas Kapayim. Maybe some say that you shouldn't do Nesilas Kapayim. That shara below yisha, shara below simcha. Now varaki yisha lo yabas simcha. The Mordechai, it's coming from Mordechai. He says you should be besimcha. Like I said before, the minhag is to do Nesilas Kapayim even if you're not married. If you're one of those people who feel I'm really depressed, I don't want to do Nesilas Kapayim, we don't protest. Actually, you have to make sure you're not mechuyev in Birkas Kohanim. So don't be present when they say Kohanim or they say go wash your hands, because then you become mechuyev in Nesilas Kapayim. This is a practical halacha. Growing up in America, I only saw Nesilas Kapayim only on Musaf on Yom Tov. El Yom Tov Mishum she'az shruyim b'simchas Yom Tov. There's a mitzvah of simcha on Yom Tov. Tov lev hu yivarich. Right, like this is like the Mordechai before. Tov lev hu yivarich. Someone who's in a state of simcha, he can give a bracha. If you're not happy, you can't give a good bracha to someone else. Mashiach came b'shar yomim, as opposed to other days. Afilu b'Shabbos Shana, even during Shabbos, Shabbos happens so frequently, it's not something special. So we're always very busy worrying about how we're going to make parnasa, and we're busy in our business in our mind. So we're never totally besimcha on Shabbos. Afilu b'Yom Tov, enosim kapayim al b'tilas musaf. Even on Yom Tov, only in musaf, because Yom Tov also you're thinking about your business and stock market. Because we know after musaf you're going to go have a nice festive meal on Yom Tov. Shabbos, I guess not. Shalom is not so good. Any time in America, all the time, except Musaf and Yom Tov, you say, or here this in Eretz Yisrael, there's no Kohanim. You say Elokeinu K'lev Gilel Sof Simchov Zayin. Yom Kippur no Simbo Kapayim K'mo Yom Tov. Yom Kippur is like a Yom Tov. This is Kapayim even in America. Some only do it in Eila of Yom Kippur. I think the minhag in America is only do it in Eila. Maybe I think they don't even do this in Yom Kippur in America. If you ever watched, I do watch this sometimes, like Kohanim, they sway their hands when they say certain words. Only certain words. The Dharma and stuff when they go like this and this. Other words, they just keep their hands straight ahead. Yivarecha, the word Yivarecha, Yishmerecha, Elecha, Yichunecha, Elecha, Elecha, Shalom. Either of these are words at the end of one of the three brachos, or they end with a chaf. So it's a bracha b'fnei atzmo. Yivarecha, Yishmerecha, Elecha. When they say these words, they should the Kohanim should say the words a little longer, and they say with a tune. Each one of them, even in the middle of the three brachos, is actual in bracha. The minhag, our minhag, to say ribon, we daven on that our chalomos should be good at the end of all the three brachos, because they elongate, they drag out the tune for it, so you should have an opportunity to say that. Right? The Rama seems to say you should say it all 7 or 8 times over here, but we only say at the end of the 3 brachos. Now, Makar Yilomer Ribon, the person who's leading on the Shliach Tzibur, he shouldn't get a Ribon, he'll get confused. The last halacha that Rambam brings, Atzar lishtamish b'kohen afilu is manazeh. This is an interesting halacha which is from the Gemara. You're not supposed to get a shimush. Kohen is not supposed to service you. Even nowadays, the havi kamol behektish. You're like doing the il behektish. Kohanim are given over to the Beis Hamikdash. It says in the Torah, "V'kidash to ki aslachem elokach u'makriv." You have to give him kedusha. So when you use him for a lowly thing to be an eved to do a service for you, that's aser. Im lo shemachal al kach. The Rama holds if he says it's okay. If you ask, can you do this for me? Can you bring this mail to the mailbox for me? So that's okay. If he says it's okay, if he's mochel on his code, he's not mochel on his code, then it's definitely a problem. Some say nowadays, even if he's mochel, it doesn't help. He can't be mochel, right? Because his kedusha, the minhag is, he says, the Mishnah Berurah says, if you do something bizayun, to make him something to do which is degrading to him, that you shouldn't do. You shouldn't rely on him being mochel on his kavod. That's the conclusion of today's share. Stay tuned for Ian Tolino. We talk about the two different aspects of being a Kohen and how it relates to the second Nesias Kapayim. We did it in 45 minutes. Pretty darn good. See you in Ian Tolino coming up next.